Want to welcome everyone to this committee meeting this evening. We are going to begin, as usual, with the prayer and pledge, and Justice Ricker is going to assist with that.
Lord, please look after us and our deliberations. Please watch over the first responders in our county and the people involved in the air disasters across our nation. Please look after the families of everyone involved in that. I ask these in Jesus' name, I pray, amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point, I trust everyone has examined the agenda, and I want to entertain a motion concerning that agenda at this time. J.P. Ecke. I have a motion to adopt the agenda as it is from J.P. Ecke. I believe we had a second from J.P. Dean. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Then the motion to adopt the agenda stands. This time we want to talk about the chairmanship of this particular committee. I will open up the floor to nominations concerning that. I recognize J.P. Ecke.
Thank you. I would like to nominate Justice David Wilson for County Services Chairman.
I have a motion that I would chair this committee. I also heard a second by more than one, I think. Any discussion concerning the chairmanship? Any other nominations from the floor?
I'd like to make a motion that we close nominations.
I don't think that's in order.
It's not in order, it's out of order. Okay, I'm a little anxious.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other nominations at this point? Seeing none, all those in favor, would you please say aye? Aye. All opposed, no. The motion carries. Thank you. I don't know if all congratulations are in order or how I should look at that. For the County Services Committee Vice Chair, we also want to open the floor for nominations concerning that. I'm trying to master this technology as we go. J.P. Koger, I was trying to recognize you, but I don't know if I did or not.
Hello.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. I would like to nominate J.P. Shonda Washington to be Vice Chair, if she will accept that. Thank you. Thank you.
We have one nomination for J.P. Washington. I have some others who are seeking to speak to this issue. J.P. Dean.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to nominate J.P. Pond.
J.P. Pond has been nominated for the vice chairmanship as well. Okay, we have a nomination for J.P. Pond and a second. We also have a nomination for J.P. Washington and a second. Are there further nominations from the floor? At this time, we could put the vice chairmanship to a vote. I will ask for those. We'll do it by signifying raised hand. Would that be appropriate?
I'd like to call point of order on that.
Okay, give me 1 second here. Trying to recognize you with your mic, but I don't.
Okay, now?
Go ahead.
Okay. The reason I call point of order is I would like, the people at home won't be able, I'm just afraid they won't be able to see our hands if we just raise our hands. And if we have the secretary call, then we will know our votes. Thank you. That's all.
Very well, we can do that, but should we do that separately for each person on the ballot? Not a ballot technically, but
I would just have them call out the name of who they vote for, one by one.
would it be acceptable with the committee if we did a roll call and at that time you state the candidate that you approve of for the vice chairmanship? I think that's what we'll do. We'll still have a roll call that way and everybody can speak to it. Mr. Allen, would you please call roll on this vote for the vice chairmanship?
Justice Dennis. Pond. Justice Hires. Washington. Justice Lemming. Pond. Justice Ricker. Pond. Justice Pond. Pond. Justice Bruns. Pond. Justice Wilson.
Pond?
Pond. Justice Massengill. Pond. Justice Rivera Lopez. Washington. Justice Ecke. Pond. Justice Dean. Pond. Justice Washington. Washington. Justice Koger. Washington.
The committee has chosen J.P. Pond to be the vice chair. Thank you, everyone, for your participation on that. At this time, we want to look at the reports. Director Tinsley, do you have a report for us this evening?
Thank you, J.P. Wilson. Good evening, Judge Deakins, Chief Stewart, and good evening to the County Service Committee members. This report is for January 2025. It's covering 31 days of data. In the month of January, we had 21 intakes with the average length of stay being 4.59 days. The average daily population for January was 14.80. The highest number of intakes were domestic battery, third, misdemeanor at 5. Of the 21 intakes from Washington County and Madison County, 10 were from Division 3 and 11 were from Division 8. There were 11 total transports. 2 transports were performed by the Washington County Sheriff's Office and 9 were performed by the Washington County Juvenile Detention Center. Are there any questions that I may address at this time?
Questions for Director Tinsley? J.P. Ecke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Tinsley, I'm alarmed by the domestic battery
Yes, ma'am.
offenses. What seems to be the root of what's going on in our young people?
We have trends throughout JDC and juvenile court. A lot of times it's between family members, as far as TVs, being in rooms and cell phones and not getting chores done around the house or not finishing homework. And so when I read these PCs that come across my email, it's very alarming. Some things can be have been escalated 9 times out of 10. And so when they call the intake phone, a lot of times we need a cooling off period between parents and juvenile or guardian and juvenile. And so that's when we step in and like, okay, we'll accept this juvenile just for, anything else. We don't want any, more violence to occur that already has. And so 95% of the time, that's what we're doing. We're like, hey, just go ahead and bring the kid in. That way cooler heads can prevail. Once that juvenile sees Judge Zimmerman or Judge Warren, then they make the decision like, okay, the cooling off period has been met. This child is safe to return home, and that's pretty much it.
Is there any follow-up counseling or that we do?
Yes, ma'am. Our social work team is very good about getting community resources available to the families and to the juveniles. So a lot of times Judge Zimmerman or Judge Warren will order a SWIP assessment. Sometimes they also refer to it as a mini SWIP, where there's just, finding out just some small things about the juvenile that can help just connect them to better resources in the community.
Great, that's reassuring.
Yes,
that-
ma'am.
That we have that. Do you see any good fruit from, if you know what I mean? Are we seeing good results in this avenue, in counseling and helping them network and say you don't have to just explode in rage or violence?
Yes, ma'am. We do, JP Eggy. Now, a lot of times, and having experience for working for Judge Zimmerman as a juvenile probation officer for several years, you really have to be patient. And after we do the legwork, but it's up to the family to follow up with those appointments and go to those appointments and meet with the counselors and therapists with anger management. And so we can offer all the resources we want. Sure. But unless that family and that child, are on the same page of getting the help, we run into that a lot too.
I know you're doing a terrific job and a fantastic job, and people just don't realize the investment you're making in these young people's lives, and hopefully they will turn out and won't end up.
We try very hard. We don't rule with an iron fist at JDC. We show compassion, and we try to help as much as we can.
Sure.
And that's the that's how I lead, and that's how I tell my young men and young women that are on my staff how to conduct themselves with juveniles. We don't rule with an iron fist. We go in soft, and we try to come with a resolution. But at any point, we do not tolerate that.
I appreciate you and all the work you've done. Please
Thank you, JP.
share that with your staff. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. JP Dennis?
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks for the great job that you do.
Yes, sir.
What has happened in my life here recently is constituents have called me and said, what can you do as a JP to help keep my child out of trouble? And, we just don't have a whole lot of authority to do that, but at the same time, I can remember one time taking a tour of the jail, and they slammed the doors extra hard for us because we were on tour, but I can remember thinking if I were in school and I took a tour through the jail, or through, in your case, juvenile detention, my question is this: do the schools ever do anything like that, where they take a tour, or are the kids in school even aware?
So JP Dennis, we used to do public tours. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we find out that because we have to put all the kids up. We have to protect the kids' privacy that are in the jail. Yes, sir. So we have to put them up. And so when we used to do these tours back in the day, all the kids had to go up, and we had to put these blinders over the windows. That way the kids couldn't look out, and maybe a kid that's in school, like, hey, that's so-and-so there. Mm-hmm. We kind of, during the COVID period, we had to kind of shut everything down. Now, JPs, people that are employees of Washington County, we still let them come visit, and see the facility. But it's been a long time since we let people from the community, schools, school children inside of the JDC, and we're still playing around, like, should we go back to doing this or not? Because we used to let them in the pod if we had a pod that was empty, we let them go in and just kind of see the shower and smell the smell of jail, if you will. It kind of turned some kids like, I'm not coming in here. And, you know, we don't want to see them. We don't have, you know, that much of a turnaround rate with kids. 90% of the time, they're one and done. You know, when we release them, the parents, they're running out the door, and we're like, hey, we don't want to see you back. A good chunk of time, we don't see them. Now, we got some kids that rather be in JDC than at home, and I know that sounds bad, but at least they're getting a hot shower, they're getting, you know, hot food. Their needs are being met at JDC, and, you know, we're just trying to do the best we can with making sure that their needs are met with therapists or what have you. So, you know, we've been dancing around, opening it back up to the community to come in, but there's still some factors in there that we want to make sure that we weigh out. We don't want any kids getting sick. I know flu's been running rampant the past couple of weeks, and schools have been shutting down and things, so we have to bring that into consideration as well.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, J.P. Dennis.
Thank you, sir. J.P. Lopez, I thought your mic was on once, but did you have a question for us?
I think I may resonate to this a little differently, given that I'm much closer to being not an adult than everyone else on this court. I do have a question regarding, do you see sentiments that get brought up regularly by kids who are in and out of our juvenile system? Is there like an overarching theme? Do these kids feel desperate? Do they feel angry? Or do they lack direction? What is it that do you see a theme?
Yes, sir. Thank you, J.P. Lopez. You know, I've been doing this job almost 11 years, which it doesn't seem like a long time, but it's a long time. And so we see trends up and down, from gangs to this, that, and the third. I think a lot of times these young men and women are bored. And I know that is the most, that's something that is like, it's an eyebrow raising, right? But, you know, a lot of times, like, man, I was just bored at home. My parents at work, I have nothing to do, so I want to go hang out with, you know, my buddies and get into some things that we shouldn't. And you know, I'm just scratching my head like, because you're bored, you know, we can find something for you to do. You know, you come fishing with us on the weekend or something. But we do see it a lot. That's just a trend right now. I'm just bored and have nothing to do.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Are there other questions at this time for Director Tinsley? Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, J.P.
Appreciate
Wilson. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you. At this time, we have a sheriff's report. Chief Deputy Tabor, are you filling the slot tonight? Okay, thank you for being here.
Good evening, everyone. So I know you have the report in front of you, so I won't read everything to you. I do have a couple of
Just-
high points. I just want
Just 1 second, sir.
Push the button.
to. Good?
Okay,
Like I said, you've got the report in front of you. I won't read it to you. I just want to point out a couple of highlights just so you don't miss them. If you go down to about the fourth line, daily average high count, you can see that's a pretty significant increase. It's been about a 10% increase 10% increase since the same period last year. And then the very next line is state prisoners, average daily population. There's a 37% increase from the same period last year of state inmates we're holding. To give them a little credit, last Friday, we got rid of 25 of them, so there's actually 25 less today than when this report was run. If you have any more questions about that report, please let me know. Currently, we have one positive COVID case, one positive flu case, and because of those two positives, we have 39 people that are in quarantine. We have a total of 140 people sleeping on the floor, 126 males and 14 females. And all these numbers I'm giving you as of this morning, so some of that could have changed a little bit between now and then. And I'll be happy to try to answer any questions you have.
okay. I think J.P. Leeming might have one.
Can you help me understand what the new bill is they're trying to do and try to cut out the new prison down in there? And they said something about making raises and paying the county jails, and do you know anything about that?
J.P. Lemon, I really don't any more than what you've just said. I know there's some talk about doing away with that, and I've heard something about the state police helping counties cut down on crime. I've heard about state employees helping at county jails, but the no details, I don't know
They
that.
ain't gonna do it that way. But okay, thank you.
J.P. Koger, actually trying to recognize you.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. Mr. or Deputy Tabor, out of the people who are waiting to go to the state prison, how many of those are women? Do you know that?
Give me just 1 second here. I'm not familiar with this paperwork as the sheriff is. I don't know that, yeah, maybe we've got that broke down. Give me just 1 second here. Well, I'm not sure I'm telling you an accurate number here. There's several, those people are in several different columns, and I'd have to add them up. Looks like there's about 9 that I see at quick glance, so not a lot.
Not a lot by May 9 women. Okay. Let me think what else I was going to ask. What about the staffing in the detention and the enforcement divisions? How's that going?
Yeah, so recently that seems to have got a lot better. We had, if I remember the numbers correctly, we had 12 spots open in enforcement. I think we're down to 5 today. And then I don't know the exact number of positions that are open in the detention center, but we've had a real run of applications. I think probably you guys approving a pay increase for us that started at the first of the year has really helped that. So we've had a lot of applications. We hired, let me think, we hired 2 on Friday, 1 this morning, and we've got some more scheduled for this week. So it's a long ways from being there, but it's looking up.
Okay. I noticed that, like you pointed out here on the report, the account is way high. But Judge Taylor has been holding court just about every day, and it has really been, I mean, she's really been disposing of cases. So it's hard to understand how we can be so high with that many people their cases being finished, because a lot of the people who come to court come from the jail.
That's correct. She has been seeing a lot of people. Our transport division's been taking people up there by the truckloads just about. But keep in mind, she's not disposing of those cases during that time. She is trying to figure out with them, their attorney, the court schedule, the prosecutor's schedule, where those cases stand and get them on docket for later. She's not disposing of those cases at that time.
Well, I've seen her dispose of some of them, but anyway.
Yep, okay.
Okay. Let me see if I think that's all that I have right now. So thank you so much for your report and for that extra information.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Are there other questions at this time? Thank you, sir. Next, we want to move to the unfinished business portion of our agenda. And you can see there that we'll deal first with an ordinance creating new planning and zoning law in Washington County and for other matters pertaining thereto. Councilor Lester is going to speak to that for a minute to give us some background. Before he begins, I'll just give everyone a reminder. This is a hard copy of what we're talking about. You can see that that's not a quick read. But part of the task that we have had to look at, and as well as those who are working here at the courthouse, have a good understanding of what's in the document, plus there's been revisions as we go, so everyone understands that. But it's an unwieldy process, and it's been going on for quite a while. But I just wanted to mention that it does take some time, and there has been a lot of hours that's gone into it. So having said that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Councilor Lester for just a moment so he can give some more background.
Thank you, Chairman Wilson. So certainly Director Atta and I are here tonight to answer questions if you have any, but I will let you know we have continued to meet with various groups. We most recently met with the Arkansas Farm Bureau group to kind of explain this to them. I know we have some new JPs, 3 new JPs who are just coming on board to get caught up. So I certainly think that probably postponing this another month to give them at least a good 30 days to try to get through this, ask the questions they have, and then come back to it next month. And Director Nada and I can be prepared to field questions if you see fit. But if you have questions tonight, certainly we're happy to try to address those.
At this time, we would entertain some questions, a motion for questions. J.P. Eckie,
I'd like to make a motion that we open up the discussion for amongst the JPs if they have any questions. We don't have to have a motion for that. It's open.
do you have a question yourself? Okay. Are there questions from anyone on the committee concerning where we're at this juncture? J.P. Bruns?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was looking at the map. I don't know if the same map I got in November from you is the same map that we're using today. Is that the case?
I believe so.
Unless there's a major issue, Tawnytown has filed and is in the process of annexing all the way to Benton County line on 412. So that could change.
Get your mind.
So how that works, just by the nature of the process, in the event that a city like that were to annex in what has been unincorporated areas of the county, then that supersedes. The county zoning is then out, because what they do, they have the complete jurisdiction over that area. We lose jurisdiction. So anytime, for any purpose, even the way it is now, the county was zoned, the unincorporated areas of the county were zoned single-family residential agricultural, and that it applies until such time as that property is annexed into a city. And once that happens, we lose that jurisdiction, and the city has the jurisdiction of that property and the zoning and classification. And so it doesn't require that we go in and make changes every time that happens. That happens by operation of law.
Okay.
So in other words, we can do whatever. They annex that in, that's all theirs as soon as that happens. And we lose that jurisdiction.
Okay. One thing I did have a concern about is that we're going from a 12-page document to a 284-page document. And, Mr. Chairman, you did a very good job of describing that it's really hard to read. And for somebody that is wanting to do rezoning for commercial property, then, they almost have to hire somebody to get through that whole ordinance, and which could add to the expense, which could add to the time, and money is taken out of the developer's pocket because of that, and that does concern me.
Well, let me correct you there. Mm-hmm. We're not going from a 12-page document to a 240-page document.
284.
284. We're going from 120, 130 plus ordinances, which are multiple pages, to one document. We're going from 100 and something documents to one document. This incorporates everything that's in the current planning code, which incorporates a lot more than just zoning. The zoning is the piece that's changing. The rest of this document, the majority, 95+% of this document, is us putting all the ordinances back into one document. Because what's worse than having to look through one 280-page document to find what you're looking for is to have to go upstairs and thumb through 120-something ordinances spread out over the last 50 years to try to find what you're looking for so that you don't mess up. So in essence, what we're trying to do is to make this a lot easier for applicants, for developers, for people that are looking to try to find what they're looking for in one document where they can search and find, which we don't have the ability to do right now because a lot of our ordinances were passed prior to computers. So we'll have one document that people can go in and do a Control-F search, and they can find, if they're looking for, let's say, site distance, they can find that within the ordinance without having to thumb through a bunch of ordinances. So, and that's why I said it may be of benefit to not do this tonight, so that because I know you haven't been or involved and been here on this to get a better understanding of exactly what this document is. Because there's one section that is new and has changed, which is the zoning. Everything else is pretty much verbatim as it is currently written and has been passed by the quorum court since the 70s.
Okay. The zoning part that you're wanting to change, have we got any formal documentation to show that why we're picking where we're picking to call that commercial entity? Like, for instance, for the Northwest Arkansas Council or anybody, has anybody done any kind of study to give us formal information about why the need to change?
So yes, the need for change, and I believe Justice Ricker got an email today from the former director of the Northwest Arkansas Planning Commission, or Planning Board, and that was, it was sent to J.P. Ricker. I saw a copy of it, where he explains that, yes, in fact, the county had been working for years, now under 2 administrations, on making some changes, and that he was of the opinion, Jeff Hawkins is who that is, who's retired now, that he was of the opinion that what we have is a disaster, and it's a problem, and if we ever, that we will have a hard time, in his words, defending the actions that we take right now, and that certainly something different needed to happen. That's somebody that's got 50-plus years in regional planning that came through and actually wrote what we have and assisted us in writing this. And so we don't feel like we need to go out and hire people outside of the community to tell us what we already know, which is what we have is not working, and it's not fair to the applicants, it's not fair to the residents, it's not fair to this quorum court and this body and the neighbors. The issue is, in 2005, then County Judge, drawing a blank, Jerry Hunton, put together what was called the PARA Task Force, Protect Agriculture in Rural Areas. The purpose of this task force was to look at the effect that growth in 2005 was having in the rural parts of the county. What they came up with was a plan, and what their purpose was, and they list this out, some of the specifics was they were trying to keep commercial growth away from farms, away from chicken houses, away from the agriculture that it thrives in the unincorporated areas of the county. And so they came up with this plan, and it's what we implemented. I believe at the time it was a step in the right direction if you're going to implement planning. The problem is it should have been updated as time goes and growth continued. Updates should have occurred that never occurred, and we never updated that. And so we've gotten to a point where what we do is outdated. And I don't have the map with me right now. I've got it up in my office, really big. I could show you. If you look at where our conditional use permits are, you will see dots all throughout the unincorporated area of Washington County. That map shows that what we did is not working to protect our rural areas and the agricultural areas of the county. So what we've come up with is we are trying to get back to that task of protecting the rural county areas and protecting the farms. To do so, we've got to put this commercial growth somewhere. We've got to have a place for them to go, because right now there is no dedicated place for commercial growth, so it ends up dotting the map, like you can see up here, everywhere out in the county. Mm-hmm. What the county needs is areas of concentration for commercial growth. Now, it's up to the quorum court to determine where that is, and there's a lot of different theories, and there's a lot of different opinions, and a lot have come from the public, and people that are experienced with this on where that should be and what it should look like. But ultimately, that is the legislative function of this quorum court. And there's a lot of things you can look at. But if you start funneling and focusing that commercial growth in those areas, you start actually protecting the rural areas and the farmland and the farmers and all the lands and the families who've spent generations and generations keeping Washington County afloat. And so that's what we're trying to do. That's our goal. That's the only goal.
Okay.
Because what we have just is not working and not doing that.
Okay, thank you for that. So if this ordinance passes, it would pass for the whole county, is that correct?
For the unincorporated areas of the county, correct.
Okay. So then what would it take to maybe a different group of corner court people come up here and say, well, we want to go south?
They'd come in and propose an ordinance and vote on it, just like this body
They have
could
to do a new ordinance.
Absolutely. Yes, that's one thing. Anything passed by ordinance can only be changed by ordinance, yes.
Okay.
Which is why we have to do an ordinance to change the county planning from what was passed back in 2006.
Gotcha.
Okay. J.P. Koger, I know that you have signaled to speak, and I haven't forgotten about you. First, I wanted to ask Director Atta if you had something that you needed to add to this conversation thus far. Okay. How about that?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the new JPs. Glad to have you here. So the new change compared, like you compared like the old to the new. The difference between the new, the whole text is about like 90 pages, 98 pages. Almost everything else is illustration, tables, and like ordinances that like referenced in the text. So that's it. Like the extra like 190 pages about is like illustrations. You can eliminate this if you don't want it. It's an update from the 1970 stuff we had, like handwritten, and it's all like designed by engineers. It's helpful to the builders, developers, the engineers that we deal with when they ask, what does this mean and what do you mean by this? And instead of reading the text, that depiction of illustration comes from the description from the text. So that makes it easier visually on them, and it saves them time. In regards to the application to the conditional use permit currently or the rezoning, it's the easiest thing ever. If you ever had the chance to read our applications, we have Q&A, we have like cheat sheets inside, and we have explain this and see an example, explain this and see an example. It's the only thing that does not require any help from anyone. Anyone who can read can write it and give you answers. The only thing that they need help, which is anyone needs help with, if you go into large scale, because that is an engineering thing. So you need to have drainage report, you need to have like grading report, you need to have plans designed for this. And that's standard, like business standard almost everywhere, not just planning. If you're building anything to a bigger scale, you need to have like plans for it. So that's the only thing you need help with. Conditional use, you just apply for, and you get either approved or not. So it's the simplest thing ever. So there is no need for anyone to help you with it. We do that. That's our job as planning staff.
J.P. Koger.
Thank you very much. Mr. Atta, I was contacted by several people, and they would like to know if we have a map that will show the city growth plans, the highway expansion, sewer and water plans for expansion, regional open space proposal, and flood zone maps, because they say that would be a big help in designating commercial areas. Do we have maps like that?
Our web map has like everything when it comes to the city and to the planning areas. Roads and everything else that like we control. Everything else that the city control, they have to contact them. Anything that has to do with utilities doesn't share anything with us. So they have their own data that they protect, because most utilities is like private companies. So they pay tons of money for their like stuff and they don't share it. The only thing I have from them is the service boundaries. Do you mind if you can reach our web map? It's on our like website. And I can email you the interactive map for the current zoning we have, and I can email you this. Yeah, if you just type Washington County, Arkansas, I wish I had like, not sure if this mouse can reach, if I can drive. It should be like 100 feet. things. That's the biggest thing we can tell you is with the utility services, which is somewhere here. Zoom out. So we have the planning areas underlined. The cities, they're not. That is the floodplain. And we have the school districts, school locations. That is the biggest one again. What are the utilities? Let's, for instance, I'll click one of them. That will show you. All right. So let's zoom in somewhere. Okay, let's do it here. It should take a second. It's going to populate like it's going to populate like an information card. See, it's populating 1 of 6. It's going to keep populating all the layers over there. Okay, so this will basically tells you this is the floodplain. That's one of them. The next one will be, come on, dude. Easier. Yep. No, it's good, it's good. It's super fast because it's far away. So that would be the information for the, yeah. Thank you. Sit on the bench. Yeah, so that is like the parcel information, and we made it simple and easy.
Director Ada?
Name of the applicant.
Sir, could you turn the microphone on right there? The folks at home are probably in the dark right now. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
So we have the information here about the parcel. You can tell property owners, acreage, addresses, and all this information is on the fly updates from the assessor's office database. So if they update anything today, 24 hours by 12 a.m., it populates for the next day. And we do this, like, as I said, on the fly. So when this change hands and recorded, it will be reflected. This one is the electric company services, and that's only for one parcel. And this is for the Ozarks Go internet, and that's like the water provider. And this is the communication, the phone, and that's it. So basically, they don't have gas, and the fire department, and that's like the biggest thing most people like ask for. Right, now you can see it at 7 instead of 6. Boom. So all this information is available online for free for almost everyone who has like access to a computer. You zoom out. You can always do this, and it takes you back to the start. And now it's populating everything again. So as I said, anything underlined is the planning area. Anything that is not solid, it's the city limits. So that's Farmington city limits, Farmington planning area. I do this on a weekly basis. If anything changes, I update this like weekly when it comes to planning areas. We have like 3 annexations this year, one of them in Fayetteville, one of them in Greenland, and one of them is Lincoln. And Goshen, they might have one this year. I'm not sure like if they're gonna vote on it or it's gonna be an ordinance. So once this happens, it comes to us, the county clerk email me, says like that ordinance passed, and I update all of this. This information you see is the most updated, most accurate. We send this to the state, we send this to the regional planning, and we share this with the cities. We know our data more than they do, so that's at least for the map. Any other question about the map?
Justice Coger?
Not about the map, I have some more questions, but.
Okay.
All right.
You might leave it up, I mean, if we can, okay.
Go ahead.
So I appreciate the conversation about the Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission, and they did work with the county, as I'm sure, at the
Yep.
beginning, at least when Judge Wood was here. But they were told in September of 2023 that the county was going to go it along. And so I'm not sure if I need to make a motion, but I would like for us to include, I know Mr. Adams worked really hard and Mr. Lester, but I think the Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission has expertise and assets, more people that could help. And since we've been talking about this now for about a year, and I don't recall one person who has come to this court in favor of what we're doing. So I just think that would open up an avenue to get more information, more data, but also to have their expertise. Not that, I'm not saying that, I mean, I know you're very qualified, I'm not saying that. It's just, I think the more we have, the better, the more input. And I saw an email from Mr. Conklin, who is Executive Director of the Regional Planning Commission, to a constituent of mine, who said that they could do that, but they'd have to be asked by the member, and the member is Washington County. And as I understand from their website, in Washington County, it's the judge, you, Mr. Atta, and Mr. Lester, the county attorney. So I don't know if I need to make a motion for that.
Let me see if I understand. What is it that you're wanting? So here's my question to you, with all due respect, J.P. Coger. This process is owned by this body. Are you wanting to farm that out to someone else? Because if so, I don't know why any of you guys are paid to be here. Because with all due respect, you're always wanting to bring other people in to do your job. We have taken over this process to do what we think is best with the county. You're welcome to ask anybody's opinion that you want, but that's not the way the process plays out. We did talk to it, and so to say that we told them we were going it alone is not true. Jeff Hawkins wrote this that we have, absolutely. We're not going to put it to a vote of Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning. It's not theirs to own. It doesn't matter what they vote on. Only you can vote on this.
I know, but I'm saying that we need their expertise, and I would like to bring them in. So if I need to make a motion for that?
Make your motion.
If you do wish to make a motion on that, the chair asks that you wait just a moment, because
Okay.
at this point, Justice Lopez has had a question. I want to acknowledge that, and then you certainly are welcome to make a motion, but let's see about his question first, if you don't mind.
Oh, I don't mind. Go ahead. Thank you.
My question is, I believe, going to be toward Councilman Lester. Regarding conditional use permits, so we all make a consensus, or not a consensus, but come to a vote regarding what this plan, the zoning map, is going to look like, correct?
Correct.
And then do we also decide when conditional use permits are allowed? Is that part of this body's duties, or is that someone else entirely?
So the plan that we're moving forward with gets us away from the conditional use permit and goes to zoning.
Okay.
When it comes to zoning changes, only the quorum court can make those changes.
Okay.
So the way it looks, what it looks like, as you can see from where these little
Yes, sir,
tiny
I have it
little
pulled
squares
here.
up.
I have it pulled
Okay.
here.
Those are areas where if someone that wanted to do something that was commercial, now it doesn't include industrial, those always have to come to the quorum court. But only in those places where we have zoned it already as commercial, can somebody with a commercial business come in and not have to request a zoning change. They still have to go through the administrative process of our planning department and the planning board. The purpose of that is they're the ones that review design. They're the ones that make sure that the applicant is adhering to state and federal laws as it relates to highways. They're the ones that are looking to make changes to make sure that the project is somewhat compatible with the surrounding projects, even if it's another commercial project. Making sure that we have the right site distance, making sure that they have the right set-offs, making sure that they have the right setbacks, those sorts of things that still have to be approved individually. And so, and making sure they have the right permits, because they've got to get permits from certain state agencies. That still goes through the process, and just like it always has. But the zoning piece is something they don't necessarily have to come ask the quorum court for. Now, nothing prevents them from wanting to put something out that is not zoned commercial. They can still come and ask, and only the quorum court can make that determination to allow that. But what it does is it gives a little bit more strength to the quorum court to protect those non-commercial areas from becoming commercial areas. And there are some other things that would be considered for the quorum court would need to consider before making that decision, but that's certainly something the quorum court could do.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
First and foremost, I think that addressed my question.
And for the new JPs, let me say this too. Changing the zoning of any piece of property doesn't have anything to do with taxes, right? Arkansas is a land use right state, which means whatever you're using your land for is what it's taxed at. So if you own a farm and you're out here on 412 and part of your farm gets zoned commercial, it's not going to mean that your taxes are commercial. Your taxes stay exactly what they are until such time as you stop using that land. And only you, the owner, can make a determination as to whether or not they sell that to somebody as commercial, for commercial use.
Yeah, a good example, like if you buy a lot in a subdivision and leave it like for a couple of years, you're only paying like maybe $5 a year. Once you build that house, the following year, the assessor's office is gonna send you like $3,500 tax on it, so.
Thank you.
Because the use has changed. Yep.
And then this is still preliminary, we're not voting to adopt this, right? This is just the plan that we have at the moment, correct?
Well, it's pending here. It can either be passed on to the quorum court to actually vote on, but you wouldn't be voting on anything final tonight, no, or you can, or whatever else this body, this committee chooses to do.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Justice Massengill, I think you had your mic on earlier. Could you key it again, please?
Thank you, Director Atta, for
Absolutely, sir.
revising the document. I think it did need a revision. But I do have a question about the areas that are slated for commercial. It looks like they're limited to some major corridors, and the rest of the county pretty much is left non-commercial.
Yes, sir. Like, so we worked like over a year, as like Council Lester mentioned, and it came like the final decision, like where this is like located, was suggested by the JPs of each area. Some of them, they like the idea. Some of them, they did not like the idea. Some of them, like, they are like in a places that like it's 100% maybe, or like more agricultural, and they needed to leave everything else as is. And some of the JPs, they're like strictly within like a city limit, so it does not even pertain to them. It doesn't apply. JP District 5, Mr. Lakai Lyons, he's out today. Work-related like travel. He drove all of this, and it was more than this. It was like we had like multiple like lots that's being picked for commercial, and he drove and it says, stops here, I haven't seen any commercial beyond this point. Stops here, I haven't seen commercial beyond this point, so eliminate and just keep this. And that was his suggestion. It came to the quorum court, and they made the decision on it. That's why that's what you see. The rest of them, they were eliminated because it was requested by the JP of the area. We started with like lots of like lots to begin with, and that was a starting point, because that's how the GIS system works. You have to pick a location and go out from there, and then you can eliminate. It's hard like to go and build manually. It's not like Lego. It's like, it's the opposite. You dismantle the stuff, you don't build it all together. So that was like the whole deal. We started with like too many, and we started like shrinking to that point. And as I said, that doesn't mean like it's gonna stop here. You can always come back and change and add, or like eliminate. And as like Mr. Lester mentioned, the whole idea started in 2005, and it was approved like in November 2006, and it was like work in progress. Almost like 20 years, like fast forward, like, and we're discussing this again. Nothing happened. No progress happened, and the demographics, population, the economy has changed like dramatically from like for over 20 years. It's not the same. The entire city limits are like running out of like real estate. People are going out, so we have to at least be able to manage it.
Yeah. Well, my concern is that when we create these commercial districts, it's gonna make it more difficult for commercial in all the other areas of the county. And I'm kind of curious, do we have a future use plan to develop infrastructure for commercial?
That would be it, because like when you point, once again, that does not mean that this is going to be commercial like tomorrow or next year or like in 10 years from now. That is a suggestion. If you want to keep it as is, it's fine. If you want to start like splitting and selling for commercial, that is fine. Everything in our like ordinance is like explained. How does this work when it comes to like services? So if you have a property, we had like a project that was supposed to be heard next month. And my first question to the applicant when he submitted like in January 9th, you need to go and talk to the utilities, because I know for sure they don't have services there. He says, nah, it's gonna be fine. Trust me, it's gonna be fine. Once we submit, it's gonna be fine. And I told him, like, go and ask. It's not gonna hurt. It's a phone call. So he paid fees, went through the whole process, reached we reached the technical review, and Washington Water Authority like sent him an email that says like there is a moratorium on this land, and it's going to be maybe lifted within 2 to 3 years. So he called me and says like, what should I do? I said, you either like dig a well, hold your water, or something else, because like if we continue with this, you're not going to get anything signed, so your process is not going to work. And that was not our decision. It was the Washington Water Authority. So he dropped that project. He took like the $250 loss, then continuing and paying almost more just to be able like to press his luck, basically. So that, yeah, services depends on the provider. But when we at least tell them or let them know that, hey, this is our focus, they might be able like, to improve on those areas. There is lots of places like in the county that they come to us and they have great plans for like a subdivision, and they go on call and like the utilities and says like, hey, you need a minimum of 8-inch water line and it's gonna cost you about like $40,000 to extend it. And it says, here goes like the, here goes the profit margin. So,
Okay, thank you.
absolutely.
J.P. Lemming?
Thank you. Brian, I like the fact that you said the Quorum Court owns this, and we're the ones that need to make the rules and do all this. Let's talk a little bit about the appeals process.
Yes, sir.
Why is it all going to be taken away from the legislative body and give to the county judge?
Where?
Well, just read right here. The county judge should hear all personal desires to be heard on the questions whether finding the decision of the planning board where the errors following such hearings, the county judge may affirm, modify, or reverse any findings of the decision of the planning board.
Would you tell me which page if you don't mind?
Well, page 47 in the appeals
40.
process. You know, if we're going to own it, the legislative body's going to own it, we need to take care of it.
Well, you do own it, JP. Let me explain this to you. The only thing the county judge's office and the planning board can do is enforce your rules.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? When it comes to zoning, that is a legislative function.
Yep.
When it comes to enforcement of the laws, that is an executive branch function. And so we're letting the executive branch function in the way in which it was created, and the legislative branch do the same. So nothing's being taken away from you, because right now appeals to the circuit courts are appeals of your zoning decision. And whether or not you were arbitrary, capricious, and unreasonable in those appeals, that won't change. We can't change that because we don't get to set those rules. Does that make sense?
So we no longer are going to get the appeals like we've had in the past?
You absolutely will. Whether you choose to rezone or not, will be appealed. Well, those appeals will go, I mean, that would be appealed to the circuit court, which is what happens now. Mm-hmm. See, what you get appealed is a non-binding decision of the planning board, which they don't even have the legal authority to make. So when the planning board passes, as we often call it, a conditional use permit, they're not passing anything. What has to be ratified by the quorum court is the zoning change, the land use change, the conditional use land use change portion of what they do. That's what gets appealed to the quorum court. You are the ultimate arbiter of that.
But you read this a lot and you find that the county judge, it all falls back in his lap. This county judge may want it, but the next one may not want it all in his lap.
You're right, and that's why the quorum court is the one that sets the rules and the parameters for how certain things can be done in the county, which is what this 280 some odd whatever pages is. Okay, those are those rules and parameters that only the quorum court can enforce or can write. You don't have the ability to enforce any rules or laws. You're the legislative branch of government.
Yeah, the judicial system's over us.
No, the judicial system is over the judiciary branch of determining cases and controversies.
Well, they're the ones that's approved this in the past and says we've been working with it and it's working all right.
Yep.
Is that true or not true?
I'm sorry, the judicial branch? Mm-hmm. No, the judicial branch determines whether or not what you do is arbitrary and capricious.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess like he's also referring, J.P. Lemming is referring to this page, like page 47. That is the large-scale development. So, and this is like 100% subjective. So like you go into like the checklist and like you make sure like you follow all the instruction, and it says like superintendent, road superintendent. So if we make a mistake, or the planning board for this specific large scale made a mistake and skipped a point, they can go within 10 days and appeal to the judge, and he can send it back, or like he can make a decision. But when it comes to rezoning, the rezoning is like your decision, and if it does not work, it goes to circuit court. That has nothing to do with like the rezoning, that part specifically. And this has not changed from the previous ordinance. That's always been there. And if you search it, like the 10 days part, it's still like over there. So it's always there. That has not changed. That has nothing to do with zoning or like conditional use or anything. That is legislative.
Justice Cogar?
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I understand that it's the job of the legislative body to vote on whatever we come up with as far as zoning and ordinance. I also understand that I'm not an expert in planning and zoning, and I don't think anyone on this court is, although speak up if you are. So for that reason, I hereby make a motion that the Washington County employ the Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission to assist us in this zoning with the ordinance and with the maps, because we need their expertise that we don't have, and then we can vote on that. I also think that will give us community buy-in that we do not have right now. That's my motion.
First off, you can't enter into a contract. You can make a motion to appropriate funds or to request the county judge do something like employ someone, but this body doesn't have the ability to make a motion to employ anybody at all.
Well, why would we not want, can we talk about why we wouldn't want them to help us?
Mr. Chairman, can I address the body real quick? I have a couple
Yes, sir.
comments here. First of all, congratulations on your chairmanship, and congratulations on Justice Pond. I think Justice Ricker had reached out to Mr. Hawkins at some point last week, and we were included, my office was included on that response, and we've since forwarded that to you since sitting here, to all of you justices of the peace. I want to just clarify something. I'm all for the experts coming into the room too and helping us as much as they can. They did. So to act like the Regional Planning Commission wasn't approached or wasn't involved in this is absolutely a lie, and that's all there is. The Jeff Hawkins email will clarify a lot of this for you. I think it's time now that we kind of circle back and understand why we're here. This process started under Judge Wood in 2019. And so 6 years later, here we are. And so over that period of 4 years, Mr. Hawkins and Judge Wood and Counselor Lester worked on this planning ordinance. When I came into office, we re-engaged with Mr. Hawkins after some time of, I guess, it had fallen off. And what he said to me was, Mr. Hawkins, congratulations to him, had gotten remarried. He had started his retired life. He was working on this when he was kind of transitioning out of Regional Planning Commission for us. What he shared with us at that time, and it's included in his email, is that we asked him to come be a part of this process, and he said that he was once again ready to be remarried and enjoy his retired life, and that to accommodate that, we would have to switch this to a new team with Regional Planning Commission and unfortunately go back and restart this work. That's when we opted to say, we will carry this ordinance to the quorum court. We did not tell Regional Planning Commission. I work with Regional Planning Commission all the time. We did not rebuff them and tell them that we would go along with our own. But you will have this email in your inbox. There's a few passages here that I'd like to read because I think it reminds us of why we're here. One of them is in the first part, and it says, quote, WC zoning code was next to impossible to defend if challenged in court, unquote. And that's what they had decided in 2019 when we started working on this ordinance. And that's kind of the same things I've been telling you guys and mocked while I've been saying it, that this is legally indefensible where we're at. So what I'd like to say is, regardless of what you ladies and gentlemen decide where we go, we cannot stay where we're at. And that's just that's the crux of it. Let me read one more passage because I think it will really bring this home also. The zoning regulations WC, which stands for Washington County, is currently operating under, handling everything except single-family and agricultural as a conditional use, are inadequate and very susceptible to legal challenge, ... They invariably lead to arbitrary and capricious deliberations and decisions. Going further, they say, He says, I have testified in state and federal court regarding planning and development matters. I can definitely say that putting decision makers like planning commission members in the position of exercising authority they may not have is potentially dangerous and liable in a libelous position to put them in and is ill-advised. If one of WC's conditional use cases ends up in federal court, which is not inconceivable, plan on learning the hard way that there is no immunity in federal court. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. J.P. Koger, you still have the floor. Did you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. I was trying to find, I can't get an internet connection right now, but I had an email from Mr. Conklin that said in September of 2023 that they were just told that their services weren't needed. But anyway, that's neither here nor...
I would like that referenced, and I feel like that's putting me and Mr. Conklin in a controversial position, which we've never been put in before. I don't know what he's referencing. There was a discussion. I don't know if he's hearing that from the telephone game from Mr. Hawkins. There was a discussion. Do we start this process over again? No. We entrusted it to the quorum court.
J.P. Koger, did you have specific documentation that you wish to enter into the discussion?
I can't get an
now?
internet connection right now, sir. I'm very sorry.
Okay,
I'm trying to.
okay.
But I do have a question, though. So if we're not going to vote on this tonight, so any amendments, they would not be proper for tonight, then I should wait on those?
Well, I can't advise you on that, but we can vote on this tonight once we have a motion on the floor, not to approve or disapprove, but as to the longevity of our deliberations. And I haven't heard any discussion or motion on that yet, but that doesn't mean we won't have one. J.P. Ricker, the chair recognizes you.
I'm not sure who this question should be addressed to. Is the county a member of regional planning?
Yes.
So as a member of regional planning, can we ask them to look at this document and give us just a down and dirty opinion on it? Not rework a wheel, just look over this document and give us an opinion. Current.
I mean, I guess the county judge could inquire whatever he so chooses of regional planning, conceivably, sure. We could ask them for yet another opinion on this.
Right, well, Jeff Hawkins, I realize is retired, and I glanced at the email, to be rather honest, I'm not sure when Jeff retired. I worked with him years ago, and the man's very intelligent and knows his business. However, there seems to be a lot of people that question different parts of this document. And I realize that a large majority of this document is standing ordinance as it sits right now. The only part, from my understanding, that's been changed is adding the commercial zoning, or adding the section 5 that deals with zoning commercial.
Correct.
I wouldn't think it would take real long to ask planning, regional planning, if they could look at this and give us a report, a document, or something that says, we think this is pretty good, or we think these particular things should or shouldn't be changed. I realize Jeff looked at this when we first started and worked on this document. I would like to see them give us an opinion on the update.
Are you making that in the form of a motion at this time?
Sure.
Okay.
It's not a proper motion.
I
You
make
can
a
certainly
motion
sit here and say, I will not be approving this until I have an opinion from regional planning, certainly. But to say that you've got to go out and get an opinion, I don't think it's a proper motion.
Okay.
And what I would like to say is, not as chair, but as a member of the committee, is that, not that I'm against getting additional support, assistance, what have you, whatever you might be proposing. In your proposal, I didn't hear anything about an ending to that. I mean, if you ask somebody for assistance, does that mean we need to hear from them in 21 days, 6 months, or whatever? So I would like to see something more specific if we entertain those ideas, and that's me as one committee member. J.P. Eckie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a reminder, it is a county judge who enters into contracts, leases, and agreements with members of Washington County, and that's something that we don't do. So open the doors of communication with the judge and see where we're going. Secondly, I have all the confidence in our planning director, Mr. Atta. Being the professional that he is, being the educated man that he is, the experience that he brings to Washington County, in my opinion, his professional recommendations, his data, the work that he has put in, is that of integrity and always thinking about Washington County. How can we make this better? How can we simplify the process is what I've heard from him. And he's looked at it, and that's the reason why he's the director and we are not. If you want to know or get data, he's the library. He is the Encyclopedia Britannica. Ask him. I don't think we need outside information or outside professionals to tell us what to do when this man worked on it and he knows, and he's the one who we rely on to be the professional. He is. And to say we need outside sources because we are not fully convinced that Director Atta is capable or has the integrity to uphold any kind of ordinance that we have or answer any of our questions, therefore we need an outside opinion. That's highly insulting in my opinion, and I don't think that is necessary from this body or from the public. I think it's very rude, Mr. Chairman, that they don't have the respect for people, professionals in their positions to bring forth the information that we need. And at this point in the process, that's what he has done. And he has answered all the questions. I'm not here to be combative. I'm here to support Director Atta and the professionals that are named to the planning board. And it is those professionals, engineers, many of them, real estate agents, some of them, who give us recommendations, but it is this body who sifts through the information and we make the determination whether or not to pass the ordinance or not. So I just hope we can just support our county staff and move forward. Thank you.
J.P. Pond? You had a point of order, correct?
I do. Waiting for the green light.
Okay.
Turn, there it is.
The hardest thing for me to do tonight is to run this computer. Everything else is easy by comparison, believe it or not.
I don't really believe that Robert's rules allows for us to judge one another as far as being rude. I may be being rude right now, but I hope you wouldn't criticize me for it. But if you do, maybe you could tell me later, and not up here on county taxpayer time.
Thank you.
That might eliminate some of the bickering.
I tend to agree that we all need to be careful in our deliberations here. I also, while I have this moment and the microphone, in the spirit of transparency, I was about to suggest a point of order really directed at myself. And because I'm being transparent, instead of whispering in the councilor's ear, I'm just going to ask in front of everyone. We've had a vigorous discussion thus far. We've had a lot of people speak several times on this same topic. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think debate discussion is limited to a person can speak twice on one particular agenda item. Now, if that's only for the quorum court, I understand. If it doesn't apply to committee, could you speak to that? Because I wanted us to get on the straight and narrow as far as doing things in the appropriate manner this evening.
Yeah, I don't expect you could just keep us all in order all the time. I mean, or you might be pretty good at whack-a-mole.
Well, I directed the point of order towards me. I wanted to make sure I was doing it right, but Counselor,
Thank you, sir.
could you assist?
So the
I
ordinance
appreciate
that was passed just says that a quorum court member in one meeting may not speak more than twice for a maximum of 5 minutes each time on one particular agenda item.
But my question is, does that apply to us in committee as well as?
I would say there wasn't a limit placed on that would only limit it to the quorum court. So my opinion would be, yes, it applies to any meeting of the quorum court, any committee or otherwise.
Based upon that interpretation, it sounds like, and forgive me, I have allowed us to belabor a point far too long, although there is much to be said and much to be asked about this particular issue, and the chair understands that. But having said that, I want to ask if I know some of you have asked to speak. I will still allow you to speak or ask a question, but we do need to wrap this topic up for this evening and decide where we're going from that point. So I believe, J.P. Lemming, you were next.
I move to table this to the April County Services Committee meeting.
There's a motion on the floor to table this to postpone this action until April, and I do have a second. I will ask if anyone needs to speak to that particular motion. I know some of you have your mics keyed to perhaps speak to something earlier, but right now we have one motion on the floor, and I believe J.P. Dennis, the chair recognizes you.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's a pretty good idea, but why April and not March? Because I find that every time we get together and we have this discussion, then we can learn more about it. I learned some things tonight I didn't know. And so I think the discussion is good, but I don't want to wait till April. I'd rather talk about it again in March. So that's just my thought.
Is that a motion, a friendly amendment to the motion?
Yes, I'll ask for a friendly amendment to make it March.
Okay, we have an amendment to the emotion, not emotion, maybe emotion levels are gonna run high before we leave, but an amendment to the motion to postpone this until April. The amendment is that we will postpone this until March. Is there a second? There was a proper second. Okay, I believe J.P. Lemming, seconded it. Okay, any discussion concerning the postponement of this issue until March? Okay, J.P. Koger, were you speaking to this particular?
I wasn't speaking to that.
Okay,
Thank you,
okay. Any other discussion on this? If there's no discussion, then we may put this to a vote. Yes, we will vote on the motion as amended, correct?
The motion that amends the main motion.
Okay. The amendment is that we will take this up in March. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. I believe it is affirmed.
Now we're back to the main motion.
So the main motion is, as amended,
Postpone to March.
we'll postpone this until our March meeting. Is there any further discussion on that?
Yes, that would be like March 3rd, according to the calendar, so.
Okay. J.P. Koger?
Yes, I did find the email that I was talking about, and, I mean, I don't even know at this point.
That isn't relevant to the current motion that's on the table. I understand, but it's not.
Thank you.
Justice Lopez?
Was this regarding the motion, or is this my question? I have nothing. I apologize.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we will vote, the motion that has been made is that this will be postponed until March. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. It is affirmed. Under new business, we have, as you can see, an ordinance creating a Community Rebuilding Initiative Grant Fund and for other matters pertaining thereto. Are we going to go with a motion on that, or open the floor to motions?
Yeah, I would entertain a motion to approve and move on to the Finance and Budget Committee.
Okay. Since this is financial in nature, do we want to entertain a motion to move this to the Finance and Budget Committee, which meets later this month? I have a motion from J.P. Lemming. I believe I have a second from J.P. Dean. Is there any discussion pertaining to that? Okay. Justice Lemming?
The young man's here. Can we hear him tell us, can we talk about it? Can we debate it, not debate it, just hear what they're talking about, and then that'll give us a little time to think about it, and talk about it, and ask questions if we need to.
What, could you be more specific? Who is wanting to speak to this?
Nick,
Okay.
I'm blank on names.
The chair would welcome some comments.
Or Patrick, just like to be filled in a little.
This might be where I need to take, because we've had the people here to speak tonight to it, and so, right, wrong, or indifferent, we've invited all the people to speak to this ordinance here this evening. Now, this is something that I'd appreciate feedback from you guys as chairman. We're all committees of the whole now. So when I have an ordinance like this in front of me, to me, it could split either way. We have a brand-new program, to me, which is county services, and of course, it costs some money, which is finance and budget. I'm pretty interchangeable with those meetings because if it crosses the fence like that, because this is a committee of the whole. But if you would like it differently, please give us some guidance, because we do have people that we invite to these meetings like this to introduce this and answer any questions.
Thank you. We would like to hear specifically from those prepared with remarks tonight. Could you state your name for us and your position and involvement here?
Nick Robbins, CEO of Returning Home. I already have a win tonight.
Excuse me just a second. You had a point of order? J.P.
Could we please at least read what this is and why we have Mr. Robbins speaking to us, because the public doesn't really know what it is, and it has to do with,
And I can go through it if you'd like.
yeah,
I can just read through
it
it.
is creating, and what this is, and we
Okay.
have an ordinance before us.
Very good. If you could help us with your remarks on that, sir, we
Thank
would
you.
appreciate that.
All right.
I'm sorry, if you'd key that mic again, please.
What we're presenting tonight is a program that we've worked on the last few months with the idea to be able to bring services to the county jail, individuals that are detained. This program, the Community Rebuilding Initiative, would be housed in the current, the past CSU building. So it's an asset the county already has that's sitting empty. And what we would like to do is have 30 men that are currently detained in Washington County that identify as they have struggles with substance abuse disorder. And they're individuals that are nonviolent, non-sexual offenders, have a current bond of $10,000 or less. So what that does is that those individuals, now you can't be 100% sure, but the majority of those individuals would be, once they went to court, would be released to our community. So we're identifying people that will be coming right back home and through the vetting of the prosecutor's office and the Washington County Sheriff, they would come to that program. That program would be in partnership and be ran by the sheriff's office, so they would oversee and meet jail standards at that location. And Returning Home would be providing the programming and services at this location. We'll have programs such as substance abuse. They'll have mental health, individual counseling, and group therapy. These individuals will go through trauma healing classes. They will have opportunities to further their education. One of the main focuses is GED, and even further focus is the math in GED. It's the one that it's the test that is most failed with this population. So this program would really be tailored to this group. Returning Home's experience with this population is for the last 4 years, you all have funded our community alternative program. And that is when individuals, men in Washington County Jail, get sentenced to us instead of going to prison. And they're housed at our Huntsville location. And so the idea is to not only reduce recidivism, individual going back to a life of crime and incarceration, but also to create a therapeutic community that gives them hope and to walk alongside them in a better future. And so for us, knowing this is that same population, how much further along would these individuals be if we were able to work with them 90 days sooner? Because right now, on average, the men that are coming to our program have served 90 days in jail while they're waiting to be adjudicated. And so we had met with a state official last week and just kind of talking to him about the program, and he said, then you're missing an opportunity if you're not serving them while they're in there. And so this gives us the opportunity that we can create a program that the community can be involved in. So that's why it's a community rebuilding initiative, because we're partnering with other nonprofits from mental health providers to physical health providers to the universities. We have a lot of people really excited about engaging this population and creating social capital. Because with this population, these are what we call lifestyle crimes. They're not situational crimes. So I've been in this field for almost 20 years now. A situational crime is if somebody commits murder, they're not committing murder every single day, multiple times a day. But if somebody is struggling with addiction, is stealing or doing something like that, they're actually doing that daily. So those lifestyle crimes are extremely difficult to overcome. They often come from their upbringing, their environment, and the resources they have available to them today. And so what we're looking to do is create social capital that will bridge the gap, that they have the resources necessary, they have the right mentors in their lives, they have the right opportunities that will be presented to them. And so far, from the judicial system to the mayors, to the police departments, the sheriff's department, we've had an amazing response. They really believe in what we're hoping to do and the opportunity that we have. The only concern we've heard so far in the dozens upon dozens of meetings we've done was that individuals from the community saying, well, what about this? Why aren't you doing that? And I was on the Washington County Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee for 3 years, and we talked about all those things. And other than Returning Home's community alternative program, not one of those things are being done. Well, the mental health court's getting ready to start. So at some point, we got to move forward. The idea that we won't do anything until we can do everything is the reason we do nothing. And so my hope today is that you would support us taking a huge step further. And because I work with this population every single day, they literally live in the home that I spend all my time in, they want this. They actually, they all wrote a card to me encouraging me pursuing this. They go, what if I would have been able to be a part of your life while I was in jail? What if I had a different opportunity? What if I would have been in this therapeutic community? How much further could I have been, and how much hope would I have had when I walked in this door? And so I've got a house of guys cheering us on right now because we're excited to be able to bring hope and impact people's lives in a positive way. And the judge can speak more to the grant that was already acquired to cover a large portion of this project. And then we're looking to pursue some stuff going further, because this is to fund something for 9 months, and we believe that'll give us the time to start pursuing more funding opportunities to fund it further, and then to open up a women's program as well. Our focus is on men right away because of the population. So the day that we came up with this and we called the prosecutor's office, we asked, hey, if we were doing this, how many people would qualify based on this, stipulations? They said 76 men and 24 women that specific day. And so if we're looking to get started, let's get started on a men's program as soon as we can so that we can learn what we don't know. We're going to probably fail a little bit. We're going to make some changes. We've already had some district courts coming up going, well, what if we do this and what if we doing that? So we've been able to sit down and kind of dream what the system could look like. I'm really excited about their ideas, especially there's a new judge in Springdale District Court, and he has some amazing ideas that could tremendously impact this population that's sitting in Washington County Jail, and none of this stuff is being addressed because they're only dealing with circuit court, none of the district court. They're walking out with multiple warrants for their arrest the day even if they got adjudicated for Washington County, it doesn't really mean anything when you don't have a license and you owe everybody these fines and fees and you got 3 warrants out for your arrest. So this is an opportunity to address everything as a whole and put these individuals in a better space. Do you guys have any questions for me?
J.P. Lemming.
I just wanted to say thank you, because I heard all that the other day when we come to this issue, and it's good for everybody here to hear it that wasn't there, and it's good for the public to hear it. So I need to hear the rest of the story on the money, and Patrick's probably going to approach that, and that'll be good.
Thank you. We're both going to stay up here in case there's questions that either one of us need to address. So you can see in the ordinance here, we were awarded a grant of roughly $355,000. The other funds that are requested in this grant are for twofold. One, the way the grant timing lined up, our grant runs out at the end of September. So if we were to complete this program for a full 9 months, roughly, then we would need that last quarter covered. These funds that are requested here would cover us for that last quarter. And then also there's some things that are one-time costs just to get that facility set up. We're very blessed to have that CSU, the former CSU facility. It's almost turnkey, ready to go. But there are some things that we're bedding and those types of costs that we're having to cover first out. Now, what I want to promise each one of you, ladies and gentlemen, is we have to get this funded. We know that this isn't a 100%. We don't want this to be 100% shouldered by Washington County, and so we've even said, if we get this program off the ground, this is not the silver bullet where we stop. This is actually where the really hard work gets to going, is that we have to go sell this to all of our state counterparts and try to get it funded again. Immediately, we will go back after the RSAT grant that we were already awarded. You can renew that from year to year, and then also we have some other monies. One of the sheets that I had handed out to you guys, there's 2 numbers on that. The one is, the top one I believe is Community Rebuilding Initiative. That was the one-time getting this off the ground money. One of the promises, though, that I made to Nick in helping us, I want to say a couple things. One, we are absolutely blessed to have Nick Robbins returning home and his entire team that's partnered with our county multiple times. Now they have a track record with us that's very dependable. Guys, you funded one of the most unique and one of the most successful programs in the state for post-reentry, and that's the Community Alternative Program, the CAP program, that I want to thank each one of you men and women that were innovative in that funding. What Nick wants, the promise I've made Nick and what he's really requested is, let's not lose a really good program in light of a new program, if that makes sense. And so we're leaving that on your radar. There's $650,000 there. That would be what would cover Nick's program for next year. And so what we're saying is we want to leave that on your radar screens. We want you to be aware of that. Once again, we're trying to get that program funded as well to get as much help as we can. But guys, we're trying to give you the full picture, the informational picture of where we're headed so that, we can get all this information out there. And finally, what I'll say is I want, a decade ago, guys, I started getting interested in local government. I know for some of you that have sat on this horseshoe, a decade's only the beginning. But this jail overcrowding has hung over our county like a dark cloud for that long. And what I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, is We're trying to break the definition of insanity right now with this. I have my grants administrator, Dr. Russell, looking at people who have been in our detention center 136 times. I think that shows you what we're doing is not working. And I want to say here in front of all you, in front of the public, that I've been on a transformation myself. That decade ago, that young man who had less gray hair thought, let's lock him up and throw away the key and be done with this problem. But what I've learned serving on the Horseshoe with you fine ladies and gentlemen and serving in the role I do now is that our criminal justice system's collapsing underneath a certain segment of our population, and it's mental health or drug abuse disorders, and a lot of times those are co-occurrences. Let me remind you, we're not confused about what to do with rapists and murderers and those types of criminals. What I think we're very confused and what we're not sophisticated enough to deal with are these individuals who are very vulnerable, continuing to readdress our criminal justice system. So let me say we've brought you a program that we think is minimally invasive into the criminal justice system in terms of the judges. We're not getting in the middle of their work. And the other thing is, what we're going to do here, we do not have to give up the accountability of the offender to help them also. These offenders will still face their day in court. They'll have the resources of this program until they reach to that point. And so we're very excited about this. We hope you, ladies and gentlemen, are very excited about this. And mostly what we're saying is we're just ready to get started. We're ready to get to work. Nick and his team are ready to get work. There's been a lot of work going on at the facility. Chief of Staff Stewart has directed our staff that facility needs to be ready by March 15th. That's a pretty ambitious goal with some of the things that we need to get going in there. But we are already well underway to make this program a reality.
Thank you. J.P. Ecke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question, does this need to go to Budget and Finance, or can it go to the full quorum court?
You all are the quorum court, so that would really be up to you. I think
Okay.
if you want to send it directly onto the court, to the full quorum court, and not feel like you have to hear the same thing again, same group of people over the same thing, by all means, it went to a committee and then it's going to the quorum court, so I think that you've hit your
Okay.
requirement.
Then, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we support this ordinance and pass it on to the full quorum court with a do pass recommendation. Wait, hold on. An amendment?
That's correct. I think there's already a motion on the floor in a second, so I think what you
There
would
was?
need to, there was a motion to pass it to the Finance and Budget Committee.
Oh.
I think what you would need to do is.
I'd like to make an
me and-
amendment to pass it on to
to
the
the
full
full-
quorum court for do pass recommendation.
Okay, so we'll need to take action on the proposed amendment, which would be to pass it to the full quorum court.
Correct.
Point of order.
Yes?
What about discussion on the main motion? That's not done, is it? I didn't get to comment. I had questions to ask.
You can ask a
But
question.
before, when we dispose of the amendment, we'll have an opportunity for that.
That's right.
But the amendment is to pass it on to the full quorum court, and I believe we had a second on that. Is there any discussion on that particular amendment at this time? All those in favor of passing it to the full quorum court, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say no. No. Okay, it is in the affirmative, and now we will need to look at the original.
Now we have on the floor an amended motion to pass, to the main motion's been amended to pass the full quorum court. Now we're back to discussion on that main motion.
Okay, and the chair will recognize J.P. Koger at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When we met at the CSU building a few weeks ago, it was my understanding that the grant was for the $355,000, and I understood that we were going to be asked to match it around $150,000, and that could include utilities. It didn't have to all be cash. So what happened to that? Why? And also that we were looking at other grants. So.
Yeah, J.B. Coker, I'm not so sure. Maybe we got confused. The 150, we do have some in-kind contributions that the county's making, not only with our staff hours, but also with the facility, that there is a matching requirement with the grant. It was 25% match required. And I believe that's some of the 150,000 you're referencing is what we were saying was our match.
When did we get word that we had gotten this grant?
The first week of January. We've got word that we were approved. We're still waiting for an official letter from the BGA, which I'm sure if you've watched the news last week, that's even gotten more interesting. We are assured that those funds are still on their way from the federal government.
Okay. Well, I support the grant part. I really do. And I think, I would like to see that go forward. We have that money. I don't support spending the extra money that's mentioned here because I don't think it's a good use of the money. I think we should be using that money like for pretrial services, that it would have a bigger impact, it could help more people. So I would like to make a motion that I have to get the ordinance up in front of me, that we remove Article 4 from this ordinance. A motion to amend to remove Article 4.
Couple things on that I want you guys to.
Is there a second on the motion, the amended motion? Okay, that motion will die for lack of a second. Judge Deakins?
I want to just say that I want you, ladies and gentlemen, to be comfortable that we're trying to maximize every grant opportunity or every dollar that we can bring back here to Washington County. Unfortunately, to some of the federal grants, there are things that aren't included in the grant. This is mostly a grant for services, so anything hard or facility related, we're having to cover as the county just because that's written into the grant stipulations. And also a lot of the medical costs that these individuals, the treatment costs, will also be included in these other funds. Simply put, the grant was never designed, nor would it ever fully cover the program, unfortunately.
We are back to the original motion to pass this to the full quorum court. Is there further discussion? J.P. Koger?
Just to make sure I understand, it's just now discussion on the motion to send it to the quorum court, is that correct? Or we?
On the main motion to pass on to the full quorum court.
Okay, I do have another thing I'd like to bring up then. In 2019, the quorum court passed a resolution encouraging all criminal justice agencies in Washington County to adopt the principle that no person should be detained in the Washington County Detention Center awaiting trial solely because of their inability to obtain pretrial release through traditional bond or to buy their freedom. So this program, while I support it, it targets people in the jail on nonviolent charge with a $10,000 bond or less. And if the bond has been set, that means that a judicial officer has decided that this person is not a threat to themselves or the community, and they could get out if they would just pay that bill. So that's why I brought up about pretrial services. I think that's where we should be looking to spend this money.
Okay, J.P. Koger, I'll have to stop you at this point. I appreciate
That's okay,
your research
Chair.
on this, but you had a motion pertaining to that earlier and it died for lack of a second.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry.
J.P. Lopez?
Are we still allowed to ask questions to Mr. Robbins?
We're to the point now where we're looking at the motion.
I understand.
Yes.
I had no comment on that. Thank you.
Okay. J.P. Pond?
I believe that what what our duty here is to determine what kind of services we provide or the care we take in housing these detainees, these individuals. I don't really believe that the legislative branch of the county, I believe that whether these people are detained or released is got more to do with the judiciary branch. Would that not be correct? And if it is, then we need to be very careful in the legislative branch not to be criticizing the possibly the services that the county receives from the judiciary branch. You know, you got these judges, we've got public defenders, we've got prosecutors, and they're elected two county-wide. I kind of feel like if I get involved in a discussion that criticizes these judges' duty, well, that would make me a big-time armchair quarterback. I think we'd be better off to do what we can to provide for and care for these people that the judiciary branch is brought to us. And so, yes, I'll be voting for this as part of my constitutional duty as a member of the legislative branch of Washington County. That's not even, you know, but a fraction of what the judiciary branch has to take care of in two counties, Washington and Madison County. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The chair recognizes Justice Lemming.
Chair, thank you. I think we've heard enough. Let's call the question.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just see if there's any other comments.
Is there any other comment? Outstanding? Okay, the question has been called. The motion is that we send this to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. All those in favor, please say aye.
Point of order. Public comment.
What public comment would be when we deal with it in the quorum court. It doesn't apply to when we're in committee. But let me begin again. I'll start from the beginning of the vote. All those in favor of sending this to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Okay, we are in the affirmative. It will be on the agenda of the quorum court. Next, on new business, we have an ordinance requiring the online posting of minutes of the Washington County Quorum Court. I believe, J.P. Koger, this is something that you have introduced, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Please, if you would, introduce that to us.
Okay, so I'll make this very brief. Publishing the minutes of the Washington County Quorum Court online is essential to ensure transparency, accountability, and public access to the meeting minutes. The people of Washington County should not have to come all the way down to the courthouse and go to the clerk's office to look through a heavy book to find the minutes. By making these records readily available, we empower citizens to stay informed, participate in local governments, and hold their elected officials accountable. Furthermore, the Quorum Court has the clear authority to require the county clerk to publish these records online pursuant to the Arkansas Attorney General Opinion 2023-79 that said that the Quorum Court has clear authority to require the county clerk to publish documents online, and that authority would undoubtedly extend to posting of minutes online as well. In that same opinion, the State Attorney General said the law grants the Quorum Court legislative authority over county affairs, provided, of course, that such actions do not conflict with other laws. And since there's no statute or constitutional provision, again, I'm reading from the opinion, prohibits this action, and one statute explicitly, that's 1414-902A, allows the Quorum Court to direct the county clerk's duties, there's a firm legal basis for requiring the online publication of these important public records. The AG also found that there was no separation of powers violation because the Quorum Court would not be revising the county clerk's office. So I make a motion to pass this ordinance on to the full Quorum Court with a due pass recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion by J.P. Koger to pass this on to the full Quorum Court. I heard a second. Was it J.P. Hires? Okay. J.P. Lopez? And I've got two ears. It's coming from both directions, too. So, J.P. Lopez, thank you for that. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion pertaining to this proposed new business? JP Ecke, I'm sorry, would you key your mic again? There we go. JP Ecke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the Washington County website, if you go to meetings and events, agendas, minutes, and media, it's already on there. And like we said last time, this was introduced to us. We, the legislative body, do not have the constitutional capacity to tell another elected official how to run their office. And I believe that our county clerk will do that, which she swore to do, and that's to uphold the Constitution and her duties and to perform them to the utmost of her ability, and that's what she's doing. To me, to get an ordinance mandating this is stepping the toes on another elected official where the agenda, minutes, and media is already posted on our website. So I understand the spirit behind it and the intent to make things as easy as possible for the public and for anybody else that wants, for us, the public. And it's always nice to have that, but we already have this. And to me, this is just being redundant and stepping constitutionally on the toes of another elected official. I won't be supporting this because we already do this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. The chair recognizes J.P. Hires.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say that while, yes, the minutes and the proposed ordinances are posted on the agenda, in the year of 2025, I think it's kind of wild that in order to find out if an ordinance is impacting you, you have to come up here and go through files. I think it's insane that it's not online. I can't believe we're not already doing it. I really don't understand why this is such a big deal, and I'll absolutely support this. Thank you.
The chair recognizes J.P. Koger.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that as far as the minutes being online, the minutes that come to the court to be approved are online if you go back and look at our agendas. But that's what I'm talking about is minutes that have been approved by the quorum court and sent to the county's clerk's office to be filed there as they're required to be by law. I talked to the county clerk and she says they're not posted now, but it's in her system where they can be. She has a section for minutes already that just not being scanned in. And she told me it would be a very simple process to for her to designate someone to scan our minutes in after they've been approved by the quorum court and after we've confirmed that they're correct and we have our votes on record. And the only minutes that have been posted in the last 2 years that have been approved by this quorum court were in January of 2023 and February and April of 2024. Those are the only ones that are online. And then you have to go to, like where J.P. Ecke was talking, you have to go to the media and the minutes to get those. It shouldn't be that way. That's why I'm bringing this ordinance, and I've already made my motion. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair recognizes J.P. Pond.
There it is.
Okay.
I'm kind of maybe a little bit confused here. Can we get these minutes online from the website? Yes, we can already. We can get them. And also, for some folks that, you know, maybe they're fond of the drama or whatever, I believe it says we're on air right now. There's even a way that you can get a video of the meeting. So you don't, I mean, you can not only see and watch what we said, but how we said it. And I'm not sure I want to try to pass some kind of ordinance that tells the county clerk how to do her job when she's already doing it. can all, like I said, we can already get these minutes online on the website. Well, some said that you can, and some said you can't.
You can pull these meetings up. Every one of them you can pull up and watch.
You can, and you can watch these, like I said, on the video. I'll be able to pull it up, or my wife will, and watch what I said right now. Like that, I don't believe all, and I mean, I might change my mind with further discussion, but so far I don't see any reason for it. Thank you.
The chair recognizes J.P. Lopez.
And I would like to say, I think, again, I don't think it's reasonable of us to ask people to go and watch these videos online after the fact for what I believe we're getting at here is the spirit of making this information readily accessible. We're saying that it should just be that they are able to see our votes on all matters that we vote on. It's just in the spirit of making sure that every constituent has the capacity to be involved and be informed about the decisions that we're making. I don't think this is a contentious issue. I don't think anyone is trying to call into question whether or not anyone on the court here is transparent. It's just about allowing people to participate fully. I think that is the spirit of why this was brought up, and I don't think that's a contentious issue at all. Thank you.
Is there other discussion? If I may speak as a committee member instead of speaking as chair on this particular issue, of course, my background is as a school administrator in a previous life. I never felt like I needed a school board to tell me specifically what to do on a day-to-day basis. And this was in a different setting. It was in a school system, but to me it seems like the same principle here that we're getting around is, you know, we've got really competent people in the courthouse, and we're all aware of that, and we sing their praises all the time, and we're proud of what they do. It makes me reluctant to try to tell them to do things a specific way. The reason I say this is if there is a ton of requests coming in every month, and this would streamline that effort, then maybe we should look at it. But my understanding is we don't have a ton of requests like that. We also don't have a lot of situations where people have to come in person to get the information. Sometimes a phone call might take care of everything, and our phone lines are open every day. So I'm not wanting to support something unless I'm convinced it's really a big help. I mean, my question is, how much would we gain from this? I'm not seeing that we would gain a whole lot, and nobody's accusing us of not being transparent, because we're on the internet all the time, and it's for the whole world to see. So we're not trying to hide anything in what we do in county government. So those are my thoughts, and I'm not inclined to support what we have on the table. J.P. Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I echo the sentiments of J.P. Lopez. I think the key word here is accessibility, and we seem to be conflating a lot of different issues. This ordinance does not state that anyone is trying to hide anything. It does not state that anyone is trying to tell anybody how to do their job. It does not state that you can't watch the YouTube. The spirit behind this is that it's obvious that the minutes are not readily accessible, and this is a solution to that. So J.P. Coker says that she's spoken with the county clerk's office, who has said that there is an easy fix to this. And I think we're bringing in a lot of other different issues and conflating a lot of different things that this really isn't about. It really is about making sure that the minutes are accessible so that when people need them, they can go to one place and find them. On a personal note, I tried to keep all of the minutes, and I was looking for minutes. This was a couple years ago. It took me too long to find them, and I was just like, forget it. Like, I don't even need them now. And so as an elected official, if I know where the minutes are, if I know how to access them, and it was difficult for me, I can only imagine how it may be for other members of the community. So I just want to encourage us all not to really discard the mindsets that we're trying to make someone do something. This really is about us making minutes be accessible for people in the community who may not know where to look. And I know that we have all these other concerns, and I just don't believe that this is any attempt to tell anyone how to do their job or any attempt to insinuate that we're doing something that needs to be exposed. It simply seems to me that the spirit behind this is let's make the minutes be accessible. And I hope that we can get a good vote and that we really won't conflate all of those other issues into this.
At this point, we do have a motion on the floor to send this to the full quorum court with a do pass recommendation. Okay, we were about to vote. J.P. Koger asked for a roll call vote. A yes vote means it does go to the full quorum court to be considered there. A no vote, of course, means that you are opposed to sending that on. Mr. Allen, would you please call roll?
Justice Dennis? No. Justice Hires? Yes. Justice Lemming? No. Justice Ricker? No. Justice Pond? No. Justice Bruns? No. Justice Wilson?
No.
No. Justice Massengill? Yes. Justice Rivera Lopez? Yes. Justice Ecke? No. Justice Dean? No. Justice Washington? Yes. Justice Koger? Yes.
The motion fails to be sent to the full quorum court. At this point, we go to our public comments. Those who are present who wish to speak, we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. We only have 12 minutes total right now allotted to this time. Before you speak, we ask always that you provide your name and where you are from in the county. Thank you so much for being here. Let me key the mic for you. Okay.
Hi, I'm Nikki Lockett. I live in Prairie Grove, between Prairie Grove and Lincoln off Greasy Valley. And I just wanted to address, I know there's public distrust about the ordinance, and I'd be one of those. And I do want to hit on some of the reasons why I think there is public distrust. Is there's a GIS director that never seems to really directly answer the questions. An example tonight was, it was asked about future planning and future infrastructure, and he takes us on a journey like 5 or 10 minutes on how to see the map on the website, but he never came back and answered the question, and that happens all the time when he's asked questions. And then when somebody asks a question that may not be favorable to somebody else, then that person responds what I think is an aggressive, condescending manner. And then there's somebody else that seems to think, what I've heard several times in meetings is that the public that doesn't support it basically are ignorant and don't know for their own good. So it comes across as shut up and obey. So just wanted to get that out. But on the flip side, I do want to appreciate the county for working with the returning home group, because I have a sister who was addicted to drugs, mental illness for over 30 years in Missouri, and she went through a drug court program for a year. It was either that or go to prison, while her 2 sons were in high school, and she was trying to raise them as a single mom addicted to drugs and did other illegal things to support her habit. And she's now been sober for about 6 years, and one son graduated from Ozark Tech, the other one's getting ready to graduate from Missouri State. And had she not had that drug program as a choice to get her life together, and now she works full-time, there probably would have been 2 more prison beds needed in addition to hers with her sons, and their lives would not be on the trajectory that they are. So I do appreciate the county looking at options to try to help people that are nonviolent offenders, so thank you.
Thank you for your comments tonight.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Steve Green, I live near West Fork. I had some prepared remarks here, but
not going to use those. Just a little bit of history on this ordinance proposed that we're talking about the rezoning to commercial. That started out in the beginning with rezoning all of the rural highways, literally hundreds of miles of rural highways, and thousands of individually owned parcels to commercial. And the question was posed during this discussion just now, why we wouldn't trust the professionals and the planners and the people behind the nice oak benches here with the planning of our county. Well, you were responsive, and those parcels, by and large, were removed because of input from the people of the county. And the remark was also made that we should trust Mr. Atta. And I've met with Mr. Atta and found him to be very knowledgeable, helpful, and an agreeable person. But his job is not to be responsive to what the people want for their county. His job is to be responsive to what you input and what the county judge inputs to him. That ordinance got started because somebody asked for that ordinance, and his job was to make it cohesive and logical and structured. His job was not to make it responsive to what the people in the county want. And I resent being chided for being an interested citizen, and I think you should feel the same way about being scolded for questioning what goes on in the county. It's your job, and it's my job. I will continue to be interested. I will continue to question. And I do not mean to point a finger at Mr. Add at all, because like I say, he's doing his job, and he's doing it very well. But I will continue to question any and all of you, and I appreciate that you give me the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Charles McKinney. I live at 19956 Lakeview Road, as I guess you all have memorized. And I do want to say that this ordinance is a huge improvement over what you had before. And I know that significant effort has gone into it. And I believe that it will solve many of the problems that the judge said it would solve. And the issue that we're dealing with now is the map. And the ordinance does not state what criteria is used to choose properties for commercial uses. It does not, I mean, it started out by rezoning every highway, both sides of every highway, and it relied on the wisdom of the justices to remove those parcels. There needs to be a criteria to establish how much commercial is needed and where. And that, if you look at Highway 412, you'll see that it's arbitrarily rezoned commercial from the Springdale boundary to Madison County and other areas, which is far more than is necessary for these purposes and is highly detrimental to the values that we hold dear, which is the beauty of our county, the natural state. So that is why, in good planning practice, we've asked Mr. Atta to produce the GIS maps or to obtain them that show the area that are under the planning jurisdictions of our communities, where they are planning sewer and water extensions, where they are planning highways, also to map those areas that we value for hunting and wildlife, and those areas which have been mapped by the committee to determine which areas should be preserved as open space. These are areas that should not be zoned commercial, and we would like to see them all on a map. He does not actually have a complete book of encyclopedias. A lot of these maps will have to be obtained from the municipalities, and we need someone to help us. Because if we, who are not all planners, are to take this parse's maps and decide where these commercial properties are best placed, we need some professional help. These are not skill sets that are in our planning office. Our planning office is primarily concerned with engineering review, but not planning for growth.
Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
tonight. We appreciate it.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair, for an opportunity to speak. I thought I heard you call for any public comment earlier on the returning home issue, so that's why I stood. You said any public comment. I'm here to say that I am in favor of returning home and his program. I don't have an issue with that. I have an issue as a concerned citizen of funding, and I have a couple of questions that I wanted to bring before the board. Monique Jones, Fayetteville, Arkansas. Sure. I know JP Bond made a comment earlier, and I wanted to address that. He said, as a legislative branch and other JPs, he didn't want to comment on what we'll do as a county or judges, but I want to remind that this branch voted to hire the Center for State Courts to conduct an assessment and recommendation here, and we spent $65,000, a part of my money, to do this assessment. And you turn around today and say you don't want to get involved with it, that's confusing to me. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is how do we hold accountability in this space for someone that comes to the Washington County Court and asks to spend over $500,000 of our funding? That's outside of the grant. I'm asking us to look at KPIs, which are key performance indicators, and OKRs, which is objective, reasonable measurements on whether or not this is serving our county well. Not saying that it can't happen, but I have not seen Mr. Robbins come before this court again after we've awarded several dollars to say, how are you measuring whether or not that's being done well? I think there's a responsibility of this court, if you're gonna push it directly to the final quorum court and skip finance, who would then be your oversight for these dollars. Otherwise, who's gonna be the oversight? Nobody here, because you're pushing it directly to the final quorum court without creating oversight and measurable goals in order to see if we're gonna fund 25%, which is a matching grant of this. He said this is for 9 months. I did the calculation, that's $480,000. They just stood and asked for over $1 million. That's gonna include county funds, which is part of my money that I pay in the county fund. I would want this organization and these JPs sitting around here to make better financial decisions by taking it to your finance committee first before taking it to quorum court without any oversight, without measurable goals, without reports back. We're giving money, and you do not do this to any other NGO here in Washington County and not make them come back and report.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Motion to extend time if the time, if that's.
We still have 6 minutes. 24 seconds. We have 1 minute and 24 seconds.
Okay, I'd make a motion to extend the time to allow everyone who's in here now to speak for their full 3 minutes. Everyone who's in line now.
Would that be 9 minutes?
Yes.
I have a motion and a second to extend our time to 9 minutes. All those in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for extending the time. My name is Sarah Moore. I'm in the city of Fayetteville. I'm also the executive director and co-founder of the Arkansas Justice Reform Coalition. And I want to speak and really wish we would have had public comment on these items to the CRI and to the returning home monies. We're a collection of our lived experience and our history, and so as much as I want to jump up and down because that is exciting to hear about a program that's finally ready to be implemented with the CRI initiative to help individuals, I have to think about the conversations we have had since 2019 in the overcrowding of the jail, the community feedback that's continued for several years that's asked for alternatives that are outside of an incarceration setting, the public comment around ARPA monies to be able to put those resources that are preventative before arrest, And then, as was mentioned by Nick Robbins tonight, he sat on the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee, and that body was made up of judges, the public defender, and prosecutor's office. And their last thing that they did as they were in action was they recommended pretrial services. We can't help but understand that a $500,000 spent at returning home could also be the $500,000 that was asked for pretrial services. It was stated by a county employee who was working on this initiative with the CJCC that 200 to 300 individuals could safely be released out of the jail. If that were the case, we'd have no one sleeping on the floor. I also can't help but revisit when we talk about we adopted something to say that no one should be in jail because they're too poor to buy their freedom. That, in fact, truth in sentencing, where folks cannot make payments on a 10% bond, is having impact. And so we have, an obligation to really revisit. And if we look at the numbers that were presented to you by the sheriff's office earlier, our pretrial numbers have grown by 10%. You have 60 folks versus last year on this period that are increased on pretrial. You additionally have 68 that are on a federal contract that we are not obligated to hold in the facility. You are our fiscal purse strings. Now, you are the ones to really guard how we're using our funds. And so again, while I appreciate returning home and what they're able to do, my concern is about how these things are being awarded, how the community is not being a part of the full conversation. Additionally, on the CIR, there is a RFP out for the mental health services, but I have to ask, why is there not an RFP for the provider of who's doing the CIR? Why is it only returning home? I also have to ask, whenever returning home has the CAP program, why is that not offered to the community as a bid process to think about all the available vendors that might be able to do those alternative services? I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments tonight. Please state your name and where you are in the county.
Yeah, my name's Ed Levi. I'm from Fayetteville. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. I also want to thank the counselor for reminding the entire court that they are responsible for the decision about the zoning. I came to talk about the zoning, but I really want to talk about what's happening in the court. With the zoning, a lot of people have come and spoken against it, but I heard that there was some talk that the silent majority was for it. Now, I don't know how you hear from the silent majority, and I also don't know why there is a silent majority unless the JPs are not representing their constituents. So I think that it is very important that the minutes are published. I think that it's very important that, and I'm thankful that some of the JPs are getting the information out to the public, but most of you are not. And you're here to represent people, the people of Washington County. And if you don't represent them, you're going to make decisions that may not be in their favor. So I would like you to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. Please state your name for the record, where you're from.
My name is Lloyd Keck. Excuse me, I've got a little bit of a hoarse voice from a cold. I live between the communities of Strickler and Bug Scuffle in South Washington County. And I wanted to talk about some of the things I heard and also about the planning and zoning ordinance. When that first started, as was mentioned, they painted the state highways basically, and I think it was definitely an overreach. And I do commend this body for number one, taking a look at that and trying to rein that in somewhat and make better decisions about where that should go so that it doesn't impact tourism or sensitive areas and so on. So I think that was a plus. I would like to see a table of contents or an index to that because it is, as I think, 280 pages. It'd be nice to have a way to sort through that for particular items. The idea of having outside comment, whether it's from the public or experts, or I heard regional planning and so on, you know, anytime you put eyes and ears to a subject, you're going to get better information. And I think that's happened in this process. So I would encourage you whether formal or not, to at least welcome people with expertise into that process and try to get their viewpoint. About the website and, you know, getting that information out there, any way to do that easier should be, certainly should be supported. And I have looked at the website. You know, with all of that, it can be improved. There's places in there that are cumbersome when you start trying to search information. There's information in there that is so old it probably should be archived and put somewhere there. But I think taking a look at that, and if you haven't personally navigated that and just picked a topic and said, I want to find out what's there, I would encourage members of this group to do that. I guess one other thing about back to the planning, I'm not well informed about commercial and large industrial and so on, and I think as you go through that, you need to look at, you know, what happens with some of these large industrial complexes. I mean, we'll probably need another landfill somewhere before too long. They're building windmills over in Carroll County. You know, these solar farms take a lot of space. And so, you know, give some, you know, I think that's part of your job, is to look at that and make sure that's accounted for in this mega ordinance, if you will. I think that's all I had to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming. Yes, sir.
Sorry about the big home burned down. This gentleman lost his home and lost everything he had.
He's not mic'd up.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming this evening. We are out of time at this juncture for public comments. J.P. Koger, did you have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I didn't think that we had used the full 9 minutes. But if we have used the full 9 minutes, then I would like to give Ms. Jones at least 2 more minutes to let her finish what she wanted to say. Thank you. I make a motion for that.
Did she have 3 minutes previously?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll take just another minute. She asked for extension of the time.
Rules say 1 time. Your ordinance says 1 time per person.
The ordinance we have says 1 time per person.
When she asked
So.
to extend, I had already stepped down.
Do we have a motion on the floor? Do we have a second to extend time?
I'll second it for you.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of extending the time, what was your time, please?
I'd say give her 2 more minutes. I think she said she could finish in that, sir.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to extend time 2 minutes, but according to an ordinance we have, a person may speak 1 time in public comments. So I'll put it to a vote of the committee. All those in favor of extending the time 2 minutes, please say aye. Aye. Those who oppose, please say no. The motion does not pass. So I do want to say thank you.
Point of order.
Your point of order?
I have a section of the Washington County Code here, and could you point out to me, please, where it says that there's...
You're not mic'd up. I'm not going to entertain us litigating a matter here publicly. You or I, neither one have done homework on this, so we're not going to do that in public. Now, we can discuss it later. But for now, I've been told an ordinance does not allow someone to speak except 1 time. Okay. J.P. Pond?
There we go. Now, this may be a question for Brian, or whenever we make a motion to extend the time, we're supposed to be making a motion to suspend the rules and extend the time. So I don't know, what I don't know is whether Miss Monique Jones if we made a motion to suspend the rules and extend the time, which is what we were supposed to be doing to start with.
Yeah, it would be, the proper motion would be to suspend the rules.
Which we didn't do on any of them tonight, but that's, what it was supposed to have been. So if we had a motion to suspend the rules and allow Ms. Monique Jones 2 more minutes, would that be against the law?
I mean, you guys ultimately can do what you want to.
Okay.
As the chair, I wish to ask J.P. Koger if she wants to make a motion to suspend the rules so that we could extend time in this particular instance. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would appreciate that very much. I make a motion to suspend the rules and allow Ms. Jones to speak for 2 minutes. Thank you.
We have a motion on the floor to extend by 2 minutes this evening. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All those, I appreciate everyone's patience on this. We really are trying to do this on the up and up. We have a motion and a second to extend the rules by 2 minutes this evening. And all those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no.
We need 8. Can you get a show of hands?
Okay, we need 8 to vote in the affirmative. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, it is passed. I'm sorry that you had to wait on this. We have 2 more minutes, which we're glad to grant to you in this instance, okay?
Thank you, Monique Jones, Fayetteville, Arkansas. And I'm just going to read off some questions that I'm going to leave here and make for record for the board. Staffing right now is currently an issue at Washington County. How do we expeditiously expect to staff this facility? Right now, we're paying overtime to try to staff. My other question is how are the allocated funds being tracked and reported, and can we have access to a detailed breakdown of staffing expenses? What specific measures are in place to ensure that the funds are being utilized efficiently and effectively to achieve the program goals? Will the county procurement department be fiduciary responsible party for oversight of those funds? Can they provide examples of successful outcomes or improvements directly resulting from the allocation of funds at the end of programs in reports? How do we assess the financial health and stability of the program, and what steps are taken to address any financial challenges since this is past a full quorum court? What mechanisms are in place for regular audits or evaluation of the fund's usage, and how often are these conducted? How is community feedback integrated into the process for the program? Mr. Robbins mentioned county services, but not any specific NGOs that would be involved in this community program. And last but not least, how many total people do we expect to serve with over $1 million? Is it just 30 people? Is that the best use of our funds? Thank you.
Thank you for coming this evening, and to everyone who is here, and especially to those who spoke tonight, we want to say thank you for coming. We do appreciate your comments and your input. We are sorry that we had to wait this long before you could get in front of the microphone. Thank you.